Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stephanie Crease, and I am the curriculum facilitator for social studies in grades 6 through 12 in our district. I want to thank everyone for being here today and having conversations and reflection over the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I'm super honored to introduce our special guest, Dr. Albert Mosley he is the president of Morningside University. And so welcome, Doctor, for being here.
Thank you.
And I also want to extend a welcome to our students. We have students from East, North, and West High School. Dr. Mosley, they are taking classes here at the Career Academy. They are exploring if they want to go into teaching. And so this experience today is even more meaningful to them and to us. So thank you again for students and Dr. Mosley for being here. Before I turn over the questions to our student panel, I want to ask you a couple background questions about who you are and what has led you to Sioux City, Iowa. So my first question is, where did you grow up and where are some other places you have lived?
So I was born and raised in rural Mississippi in a town of about maybe 300 people. So you guys are all here in Sioux City. And sometimes people think Sioux City is small, but imagine a community with just 300 people. So it's in the east central part of the state of Mississippi. And one of the things it's kind of a joke and sort of not, but it makes life a little challenging, especially like high school prom and those types of things, because almost everybody's your relative, and so in a small town. So you can't go to prom with anybody or whatever. But it's a very, very, very small community. But grew up, born and raised there. I went about 2 hours south of that community to go to college, to a small college called Millsaps College, which is similar to Morningside. And following that, I did a master's at Duke University in Durham, North Carolina. And then I did my doctorate at Yale University in New Haven, Connecticut. So I went from a really tiny, small community to large cities, places that I'd never, ever been before in my life. And one of the other kind of important parts of that I would love to share is that, I am a first generation college student. So meaning no one in my family had gone to college before. I was the first person in my family to ever go to college. And so the mere fact that I found myself at some of the places where I did find myself, places like Duke and Yale, is nothing short of a miracle because I didn't have a roadmap for that. There was no one who had done it before. Nobody could give me insight or advice on it. And so I like to share that oftentimes with students as sort of I'm proof positive that you can actually do this. And I literally came from nowhere, from a town of 300 people with very few resources and grew up in poverty. My family, grew up in a single parent home and lived in pretty much abject poverty. And managed to sort of climb above that to get to where I am today. So,
before I turn it over to the panel of students with their questions, I have one more question. And this is going to lead up into our conversation about the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. In your own words, who's Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.?
I have spent a good bit of my life studying the life and work of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. One of the things that I share in common with Dr. King is I am a member of a fraternal organization that Dr. King was a member of, and that organization I think speaks so much to just even Dr. King's life, especially as it revolves around service and uplifting others. And for me personally, that's been one of the, I would like to say, and I hope others would agree, that's been one of the hallmarks of my journey, my life, is to do whatever I can to uplift others. So there's that whole notion of sort of lifting as we rise also. So as you go up, you lift and you bring others along with you. And I think that's that was kind of at the heart of Dr. King's notion of service. You've heard the quote. Some of you may have heard the quote before that everybody can be great because everybody can serve. That was one of Dr. King's most famous quotes, that every single person can be great because every single person can do something to serve someone else.
Thank you. I think it's time to turn over the questions to our students. So I'll have you introduce yourself and what school you attend and any background you want to give, and then you can ask a question.
Hi, my name is Callie Levasseur. I'm a junior at North High, and I am in the education program to be a high school history teacher. And the question that I have for you today is, why is it important to know history when honoring leaders like Dr. King?
Yeah, thank you. Well, that's a really great question. I think, history is itself a teacher for all of us. There's so much we can learn from history. I think one of the challenges that we all face is, trying not to repeat mistakes of the past, trying not to do things that have happened before that we know are not good. And so, especially as we look at the life of Dr. King, and we look at sort of what he worked to accomplish and what he worked to achieve, not just for a particular community, but for everyone, for all of humanity. I think it's really significant that we all study that history and we understand even just his approach and his methodology. You talk about, nonviolent resistance. That was one of the most novel things to do at the time. And if you look at the history of the movement, it was nonviolent resistance in the face of extreme violence. So you guys have studied this in history classes. You've seen the images of fire hoses and dogs and police with billy clubs and all those types of things. And Dr. King's message in the face of that was to not react, to not respond. And so I think it's important to know that and to study that history and to understand even how effective that approach was, because to some people it didn't make sense. Some folks said, well, this doesn't make any sense. Why wouldn't you respond? But it was a very effective approach that really, at the end of the day, was based in Dr. King's understanding of peace and what it means to really express love, even to those who are, really, their goal is to harm you and to destroy you. And so thank you for the question. It's really good.
Mm-hmm. Hi, my name is Angela Zermano. I'm a junior at West High School. My question for you today is, what are some things you do to help honor MLK now?
Thank you for the question. One of the, in a lot of communities, there's an MLK Day of Service. And so instead of sort of a day off, you spend the day engaged in service projects, giving back to your community. In places where we've lived in the past where that happened, we would, my wife, my kids, and I would spend the day doing that, engaged in service projects. Here in Sioux City, for the past couple of years, I've been a part of the Martin Luther King service that the community holds here. But I think also, like even on our campus at Morningside, one of the things we do is we have a day, last year especially, we had time set aside where members of the community read from Dr. King's work and his writings, and folks came together to hear some of those readings, things that he wrote about, particularly things that focused on service and on love and care for one another. And so that's kind of one of the ways that I try to honor his legacy, is to make sure that I'm doing something to help somebody else on Martin Luther King Day, instead of just a day off. It's not just a day to sleep in or to not do anything, to really take that time to reflect on the meaning of his life and the purpose of us even honoring him in this way.
Hi, I'm Brianna Mejia. I'm a junior at North High. I'm also in the education program. I'm interested in being a third grade elementary teacher, and my question for you is, how has MLK inspired students to peacefully stand up for what is right today?
A lot of people have studied both Dr. King and Mahatma Gandhi's approach to nonviolence, nonviolent resistance. I think movements that have happened since Dr. King's movement, people have modeled their approaches on that. And so, for example, if students are interested in making some sort of systematic change at their college or their their school or whatever the case may be, I think there are approaches that you can look at from Dr. King and say, okay, well, probably the best way to do this is to certainly to do it in a nonviolent fashion, but also try to engage with those who are in power and who can actually bring about the change, and reason with them and try to get them to understand why you're requesting this, why you're asking for this to happen. Come together and to try to talk with one another, to try to reason and to try to understand our differences and how do we move beyond those differences to ensure that we're all on the same page. Yeah. Thank you, Brianna, for the question.
Hi, I'm Mariana Zarmino, a senior at North High School. I'm taking the education program because I am considering being a teacher. My question is, what does MLK impact mean to you personally and professionally?
Thank you, Mariana, for the question. I think Dr. King's impact, both personally and professionally, are so incredibly profound for me in my life. On the professional side and even the personal side, but let me speak to the professional side first. I've found myself throughout the course of my career in a lot of places where I was the first, where there were not people who looked like me who had been there before. And I do know that Dr. King opened the door for that to happen. And even in today's time, that's still the case. That's certainly still the case. I know for a fact that had it not been for the life and the work of Martin Luther King Jr., that a lot of that would not have been possible. And so I don't take it lightly when I walk into a space or into a room where my ancestors would not have been able to go. I'm sometimes sort of overwhelmed by that. And there's a saying that I heard recently that and you guys probably have heard it because you're young and you know things I don't know. But one of the sayings was, the saying I heard was that I am my ancestors' wildest dream. I am their wildest dream.
I have a dream today.
They would have never dreamt this either, because it would have just been impossible. So that's, when I think about Dr. King and the impact he had, I can't even say enough about it. It's just so incredibly profound on a professional level. Similarly, on a personal level as well, because I shared at the beginning just about my own educational journey, and again, the mere fact that I could come from sort of but the incredibly humble beginnings that I came from, and managed to do some of the things that I've done in life. I attribute a lot of that to not just the work of Dr. King, but even to just kind of that whole notion that we can do something different, we can dream something different, we can become something other than what the script might say. We can change the script actually, and pave a way, take a journey that's very different. So, thank you.
Hello, my name is Bill Marino. I'm a junior at East High School. I'm thinking about going into secondary education. And my question for you is, as future educators, what can we do to help our students keep moving forward using Martin Luther King Jr.'s legacy?
Yeah, thank you, Nolan, for the question. It's a great question. And I've kind of, as I've sort of mentioned a little bit here in our conversation today already, teachers are, I think, gatekeepers in many ways, in a very positive sense, not in a negative sense. In the positive sense in that for so many of our future educators, you have the opportunity to really expose students to thoughts and things that they would probably not get exposed to either at home or in other settings. And so I think it's an awesome responsibility on the shoulders of our teachers to be able to share with young people not only the history, not just sharing the history of what happened, but what that history means, how it transformed our society, our world even. And for some people, I think it was, well, that was so long ago. It actually wasn't very long ago. So I was actually born just a few years after at the sort of the height of the civil rights movement, a year after that, actually, a year after Dr. King's assassination. And so these things are not so very, very far ago, so very long ago. And I think there are times when people want to sort of push this deep into the past and say, oh, it has nothing to do with me. But teachers play a pivotal role in ensuring that students know our history, they appreciate it, they have an understanding of it, and also to ensure that we don't repeat some of those mistakes of the past, that we continue to strive to be better people for not just ourselves, but for those who will come after us.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
I want to thank our student panel. This is an amazing experience, and I couldn't have done it without you, so thank you. And Dr. Mosley, it's been a pleasure just to learn about your journey and your work that you've done at Morningside University, and just your insights and a reflection over the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. So I just want to thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you all for having me, and thank you, students, for really amazing questions and for just a really fun time to engage with one another. Really do appreciate it.